Here's why Littlefinger turned Sansa against Arya, but it backfired. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe if you love House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and deep dives into Westerosi lore. Let's begin. In the world of Game of Thrones, every move is calculated, every whisper has weight, and every betrayal has consequences. Few characters understood this better than Petyr Baelish, better known as Littlefinger. From the very first season, he established himself as one of the most cunning manipulators in all of Westeros. His schemes destroyed houses, started wars, and shifted the balance of power more than once. But when it came to his final play in Winterfell, when he attempted to turn Sansa Stark against her sister Arya, the game suddenly slipped out of his hands. Why would a man as clever as Littlefinger make such a dangerous gamble? What was his endgame? And why, despite his years of manipulation, did this particular scheme backfire so spectacularly, leading to his downfall? Today, we dive deep into the real reasons behind Littlefinger's last great betrayal, examining his motives, his mistakes, and how the bond between Sansa and Arya shattered the carefully constructed illusions of the master schemer. Before we can understand why Littlefinger tried to pit Sansa against Arya, we have to understand the man himself. Petyr Baelish came from nothing. His House Baelish, was a minor family with no wealth or real influence. Yet, through ambition, charm, and ruthless cunning, Littlefinger climbed higher than most born into privilege. His philosophy was summed up in one of the most chilling lines of the series: chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. Where others feared instability, Littlefinger thrived in it. He believed that by sowing discord and mistrust, he could rise higher while others fell. Every war, every betrayal, every moment of political chaos was simply another rung on the ladder to his ultimate goal. And what was that goal? Many fans debate this, but it's clear Littlefinger wanted the Iron Throne, or at least to control it through influence. But unlike men such as Stannis or Daenerys, his path wasn't through armies or birthright. It was through whispers, manipulation, and setting people against each other until he alone was left standing. Now let's focus on Sansa. To Littlefinger, Sansa wasn't just another pawn. She was central to his long-term strategy. Why? First, she was a Stark. The Stark name carried immense weight in the North. Whoever controlled Sansa could, in theory, claim influence over the Northern lords. Second, she was the daughter of Catelyn Stark, the woman Littlefinger loved his entire life. He saw Sansa as a twisted substitute for the woman he could never have. His obsession made him believe that if he could mold Sansa into his ally, or even his partner, he could finally fulfill both his ambition and his personal desires. When he helped smuggle her out of King's Landing after Joffrey's death, it wasn't just strategy. It was personal. He wanted to shape her into a new Catelyn, but one who shared his worldview of manipulation and survival through lies. By the time Sansa returned to Winterfell, she had learned from Littlefinger's teachings. She wasn't the naive girl she had once been. But this presented a problem. She had also grown more independent, more skeptical of his games. And with Arya returning to Winterfell as well, suddenly Littlefinger's influence was threatened. Arya Stark was unlike anyone Littlefinger had ever dealt with. She was not concerned with politics, reputation, or diplomacy. She operated on instinct, training, and an almost ruthless code of justice. Where Sansa played the Game of Thrones with words and alliances, Arya played a completely different game, one of shadows, knives, and survival. To Littlefinger, Arya was dangerous for two reasons. One, she could see through lies. Arya's bluntness and lack of interest in politics made her harder to manipulate. Two, she threatened his control over Sansa. If Arya influenced Sansa, his hold would weaken. Thus, Arya represented chaos that Littlefinger couldn't control. And so, in his usual fashion, he sought to eliminate the threat not by force, but by division. Littlefinger's plan unfolded with careful subtlety. He planted the infamous letter that Sansa had written under Cersei's orders during Season 1, where she begged Robb to bend the knee. This letter, if seen out of context, would make it appear that Sansa had betrayed her family. He intentionally led Arya to discover the letter, Knowing her loyalty to her family would make her suspicious of Sansa. At the same time, he tried to plant doubts in Sansa's mind about Arya's ruthlessness. It was a classic Littlefinger tactic: sow mistrust, let the paranoia grow, and then position himself as the one person who could be trusted. He wanted Sansa to feel isolated from Arya, so she would turn back to him as her sole advisor and protector. If Sansa distrusted Arya enough, perhaps she would even sanction Arya's removal, or at least distance herself, leaving Littlefinger as the one constant by her side. So why did this plan fail when so many of Littlefinger's earlier schemes succeeded? 1. He underestimated Arya and Sansa's growth. When he first encountered them years ago, they were naive children, but both had endured unimaginable trials. Sansa had survived King's Landing, Ramsay Bolton, and years of political entanglements. Arya had trained with the faceless men, learned deception, and honed her instincts. Littlefinger was still playing the same game, but his pawns were no longer children. They were battle-tested survivors. 2. He didn't account for Bran Stark. The return of Bran changed everything. As the three-eyed raven, Bran could see through Littlefinger's lies. In one crucial moment, Bran quoted Littlefinger's own words, "Chaos is a ladder," exposing that he knew Littlefinger's manipulations ran deep. 3. He relied too heavily on old tactics. Littlefinger's entire playbook revolved around secrets, whispers, and betrayal. But Winterfell was no longer a place of political scheming like King's Landing. It was a place where family bonds and shared survival against the coming war mattered more. His manipulations felt out of step with the reality around him. 4. He underestimated Sansa's loyalty to her family. He believed Sansa was cynical enough to choose him over Arya. But deep down, Sansa's loyalty to her family was stronger than any bond Littlefinger could create. When faced with a choice between Arya and Peter, she chose blood. The confrontation in the Great Hall was the culmination of Littlefinger's failure. Thinking he had successfully turned Sansa against Arya, he was blindsided when the tables turned. Sansa's words, "You stand accused of murder. You stand accused of treason. How do you answer these charges, Lord Baelish?" With a moment, the game ended. Desperate, Littlefinger pleaded, begged, and tried one last time to manipulate Sansa emotionally. But it was too late. She had seen through him. With Arya by her side, she passed judgment, and Arya carried out the execution with the same ruthless efficiency that defined her journey. In that moment, the great schemer who had orchestrated wars and toppled kings was undone not by another manipulator, but by the very family he thought he could control. Here's the key insight. Littlefinger's schemes always relied on people being selfish, fearful, or power-hungry. In King's Landing, everyone had an agenda, and he exploited that. But in Winterfell, things were different. The Starks had been scattered brutality.